when they called me and said, you got an academy date, what prison do you want to work at? I said, Centinela State Prison. People always said, oh, you're a CO, you should be acting better than those inmates. And he's like, no, that's different. You're in there with us. You're in there. You're operating in there with us. It's about fear. It's about violence. It's about intimidation. So when somebody puts a piece of paper, hey, start mixing these two dudes, first thing I did was make extra copies of that paper. I'm not proud of it. It's pretty shameful. I don't like to be a pawn in anybody's chessboard. Not even the inmates are this unethical. Then you ask any officer right now at any prison in California, who's the problem, the administrators or the inmate? Hands down, they're going to say the administrators. And then that's when all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose.
That's when I see lights behind me start to flash. And I didn't even think, I just hit it. I was driving like my life depended on it. Then I parked the car, hopped out, closed the door, and I started running.
And he pulls out a burner, a shank, like 6 inches. And he passes it to me. And he goes, here, that's yours. Don't ever leave the cell block without this. He was the reason I made it out of that place alive.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Connect. Today's episode, we have a very special guest in studio. He is a former California corrections officer. He served on a level 3 and level 4 prison yard. That's the worst of the worst, maximum security prison yard for 15 years. He's got a YouTube channel and he's here to spill the dirt on everything that he saw and experienced. We have Hector Bravo, everyone. And we're off. Hector Bravo, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah. How'd you find out about our channel?
I searched it on YouTube.
Wow.
It popped up and it was right there, man. Front center.
Algorithm working for us,
there
dude.
You go.
Well, we're glad to have you here. You are going to be the first guest who comes from the other side of the tracks, right? We normally interview criminals on this program. We're a very pro-crime podcast in many ways. But you have a particularly interesting story. Being a former CO, corrections officer, you remind me a lot of the guys that I used to do time with, right? A lot of these young, good-looking, cool COs, right? Like, I like you. I instantly felt a kinship with you. So glad to have you on the program, my man.
Thank you, man. I'm tracking with what you're saying.
For sure.
The vibe and stuff.
Yeah. So we'll just start at the beginning. You are from a little town in California.
Yeah, Southern California, dude. Brawley,
which nobody has heard of.
Probably not.
I've been in California forever. Brawley's a tiny little dusty town on the far southeastern side of California.
Borders Arizona and Mexico.
Yeah, so it's by Calexico and all those little...
Right there, Imperial Valley.
So what was that like?
Exactly that, man. Like living in a bowl, like living in a hole pretty much. Mm-hmm. It's small town, bunch of little small towns, so everybody knows everything. You do one thing in one town, word gets to, this is before cell phones, so...
Yeah.
Very family-oriented, I guess you can say.
Latino,
Mexican for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of drugs in the area.
Yeah, I imagine. So where are your parents from? Are they from Mexico?
Grandparents are from Mexico.
Gotcha.
So whatever generation follows suit.
And did you see or know about cartel activity in those little towns when you were growing up?
No.
Did you find that the drugs came in later, like as you became a teenager? Did you find things like heroin or crystal meth start to perpetrate the
drugs were normal. I didn't know they were coming from the cartel. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't know what cartels were. I mean, I knew the drugs. I knew the house to our right sold heroin, and I knew my buddy to the left did a lot of meth. And we were, the house in the middle. But at one point, my dad got upset because of the foot traffic with the bikes, the bicycles, and just knocking on the window and getting their fix.
Yeah. There really are two Californias, and people, associate Southern California with, the beach, Orange County, Hollywood. They kind of glamorize it, right? And then there's Northern California, the tech bubble in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. But the other side of the tracks, the other California is, basically like almost like a town in the Midwest. It's like the Rust Belt of the West Coast. It's these tiny little towns that really have no industry, like Fresno, like Modesto,
right?
Like these places these unincorporated counties that are just now riddled with meth, heroin, probably fentanyl now.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's where you're from.
Yep.
Did you know any prison guards back then? Your father was a prison guard?
So I was born in 1984, just to give you a time frame of my age. There was a big boom in prisons being built in the 90s, right? And then this is me learning about the past. The 3 strikes law, they started striking all these guys out with the 3 felonies, giving them life. They built 2 prisons down there in the Imperial Valley. Calipatria State Prison, Calipat, and Centinela State Prison. So in 1993, my dad went to the academy. They had just activated Centinela.
Right.
And what was I, 9 years old?
Right. So he became a CO at Centinela.
Yeah.
And how long did he work there for?
He ended up doing 22 years and then retired at 50.
Right. He did 22 years.
Yeah.
That's funny. When you talk about how long a CO works,
I get that.
You kind of refer to him as like, it sounds like he's done time. Like, he did 20 years at Centinela.
Yeah, but I'm not, people have told me that, but it's like when I say that's how I feel, it kind of comes out. You know?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, and that's where they put these prisons too. When those mandatory minimum laws came down in the 90s and the prison population exploded, all these new prisons popped up in these places like, what's the name of the town?
El Centro, Calipat.
Yeah. Like I was in a prison like that, just way out in a town a deindustrialized town with high unemployment. And that's what people do. They're either on drugs,
right,
or they work at the prison or the McDonald's, you know?
That's it.
What was that? Do you remember your father? Do you remember him being unhappy? Did he like his job? What was that?
My dad in general is a quiet dude. Quiet man. Anybody that will tell you he's quiet. Doesn't say anything. Not really a jokester. If you know him, like I was his son, he didn't talk about the prison. He didn't talk about what he saw, what he did. But I remember he would come home from work and take naps, like probably exhausted from working.
Sure. Do you don't remember any violence, him witnessing any violence or any violence happening to him?
A lot of the stuff came out after. But one time when I was a kid, when we would take family summer trips, whether it was Great America in San Jose or Disneyland, this and that, we were in Oakland of all places. We were kids. We were in the hood in Oakland at a gas station, and all of a sudden, like my dad's like, "Hey, let's go." Some dude had approached him, shook his hand. They had exchanged words, shook his hand, and we left, got in the car. My mom was like, "What was that about?" He's like, "I shot that guy. I shot that guy in ADSEG with a 37 millimeter with a block gun." So he shot him with a block gun. But the guy, like I said, the way my dad carried himself was extremely respectful.
What does that mean? So explain that. He shot him with
he shot him with the less lethal weapon. So not the rifle that shoots live bullets. He shot him with, the block gun or the wooden rounds, the ones that hurt you. I mean, they could kill you, but the ones that break bones or hurt you.
Wow.
That was an ADSEG. And
so this guy, he had shot him in a prison riot?
In ADSEG, because...
What is ADSEG?
The hole.
Okay.
So Administrative Segregation Unit. And this is me learning after, like I said, he used to work the hole, and the hole is a pretty righteous place to work, especially in those days. You were hand selected. You were part of a crew to work there, right?
Yeah.
They had to trust you. They had to, vet you.
Yeah.
And you had to be a hard worker because you're humping trays, self-feeding, feeding the inmates in their cells.
Yeah.
And
how do they vet you?
Like, I guess you can't come in and be a turd. Well, now you probably can, but back then, like if you're showing up late, if you're being lazy, especially in the hole, right? You got to work. Being a rat, I guess.
Yeah. No, there's a real code of silence.
Yeah.
It's just like the police. The COs have their own fraternity.
Especially the hole, especially those days. I mean, I'm keeping it real with you. The hole was its own little isolated world.
It's a prison within a prison.
There you go.
Yeah. And so what happened? How did he end up shooting this guy?
They talk about Gladiator, and I'm glad I come out on YouTube and talk about this stuff. So they talk about the Gladiator Wars and the Gladiator Days in Corcoran, where they were mixing inmates that should not have been mixed.
Of course.
But like I state, those directives come from above us, Sacramento headquarters. So the troops are only following suit and following orders.
So you're saying when they intentionally, and that's what gladiator fights are, when they intentionally mix members of rival gangs together so they'll fight and kill each other, you're saying that comes from above?
Well, that's no different than the general population, the SNY inmates getting mixed. That came from above.
Why? Why would they want to mix general population inmates with segregated inmates?
Because they created a sensitive needs yard, and it was a failure. It was an utter failure. They created their own gangs within the sensitive needs yard. And then everybody who just, I'm scared, I can't be here. Hey, you get a free pass. You're in.
Right.
So it was, probably 75% SNY.
Wow. You're saying
now.
prisons now?
Yeah, for sure.
75% is protective custody?
And that was 3 years ago, dude, when I looked up the numbers. That was 3 years ago.
Wow. So you could just go. Do you think inmates were doing that? Saying, I'm scared, send me to PC just to form.
I know it.
Just to click up?
Not to
form
click
their own,
up.
No,
Because
to form their own gangs.
I think just they didn't want to deal with the GP. Some didn't even give it a shot.
Right.
Right off the bus, SNY.
So this guy, you're on a family vacation.
Yeah.
And this guy approaches your dad.
So I'm assuming that I'm assuming that's what transpired, right? Because my dad ended up telling me another story where he went under some type of investigation for those type of allegations, right? Of, hey, you're mixing these guys. But he was just like, hey, man, I'm doing what I'm told. Here is the paperwork. You know, it's common sense of what's going to happen. And he ended up shooting. I mean, you have to quell the violence.
So how does a guy in segregation do something to merit himself getting shot?
So back then, right, and you're asking these good questions. The ADSEG, they had a big yard. So imagine a big recreational area. Oh, it's caged in, but you put numerous inmates in one area. Now they have individual dog kennels.
Right. So you can only be in there
by yourself or with your cellmate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So back then they had the big yards. They had little triangles in the hole or triangles in the fence holes. So you can put the barrel of a 37 millimeter back then. It's kind of the same thing, 37 millimeter, 40 millimeter. And then they put it in there and then boom, they start fighting.
But what?
Fighting.
Okay, got it.
Or stabbing or slashing.
So even segregated inmates in these triangle dog kennels can get at other inmates to stab them.
This was the big yards prior.
Gotcha.
This was back in the day.
Gotcha. So,
and they have weapons.
Yeah. So even in segregation, they're able to get weapons out to yard.
Yeah, in their mouth, razor blades, in their hooped, keistered,
right,
in their butt.
Yeah. And so your dad was probably shooting somebody that was stabbing another inmate.
I think he said it was like a fist fight or like a fight, but they got to stop.
Yeah.
The thing about ADSEG is you can't just open the doors. The policy for ADSEG is inmates have to be in handcuffs, have to be restrained prior to you opening a door.
Right.
So something has to be done to stop the violence. Mm-hmm. You can't just, because if you open that door, you are now violating policy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what did this guy got out, and years later he approached your father at a gas station in Oakland.
In the hood, man.
What happened?
It's like a liquor store. After my dad rushed us out, my mom's like, what'd he say? He's like, hey, no hard feelings. Said his last name, no hard feelings. Shook his hand.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills thinking about it.
Sure.
But that just goes to show the mindset back then, the professionalism and the respect level.
Yeah.
Like it was all business.
Well, most people that are able to get out.
Yeah.
Because the odds of you being in segregation in a California yard of that danger, most guys are never coming home. You know what I mean? But to get out, most inmates they gain some perspective, I think, being in those conditions and then getting out. The guy was probably like, I deserve to get shot with a rubber bullet, Well,
looking back in hindsight, that was Northern California, Oakland. Maybe he might have been a norteño, a northern Hispanic. Yeah. And at that time, well, they did have Northern Hispanics housed down south, but they were fighting, of course, politics.
Yeah, of course. Of course. That when I was locked up, it was always 90% of the time when a stabbing occurred, it was norteño and sureño or vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing here.
They bang hard.
Now they're cool, though. It's a peace treaty.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And it's working.
What's up, guys? Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Golden Cricket Protein Bars. These are the most delicious and sustainable protein bars on the market. So we all know most protein bars suck. These do not. These are awesome. I remember when I was outside hustling back in the day, when I was running around, even when I run around now in LA, going from show to show, podcast to podcast, a lot of times I don't have time to eat a full meal, so I supplement it with protein bars like Golden Cricket, okay? Golden Cricket makes healthy snacks that are good for you, but also the planet. Try out their new peanut butter chocolate banana. It is a kick-ass flavor combo. It is so good. Go to goldencricket.com in the next 10 or 15 minutes and use promo code CONNECT for 15% off anything on their website. Also, make sure to check out their content on Instagram at Golden Cricket Inc. They're doing amazing things. They're making these protein bars that are sustainable. They use, check it out, 140 gallons of water less compared to like whey protein and these other protein bars on the market. They're so good. They're out of Austin, Texas. A good friend of mine owns the company, and they're just about to take over. You're going to see these in Whole Foods in a couple of years. So make sure to go over to goldencricket.com, use promo code CONNECT for 15% off anything on their website. Thank you so much for the sponsor. Let's get back into the show. So moving on, you're now a teenager. You decide to go to the military. You're 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Why didn't you decide to become a CO straight up?
Because I was 17 at the time. You had the minimum age to become a CO was 21.
Okay.
So I had to kill that time, man.
Right. Did your parents encourage you?
Hell no.
They didn't want you to go to the military?
Nope.
Why not?
Because they could hear the war drums beating with the whole
Right.
Afghanistan, 9/11, Saddam Hussein, weapons of mass destruction. They had to sign the permission slip, the waiver. I was underage. I was 17. But my dad kept saying, hey, go to college, go to college. And I'm like, Dad, I don't want to go to college. I hate high school. Why would I go to college? You know, I barely passed high school, but
So you go off to the military. You were in Germany, and then you see 1 year of action. You actually were in Iraq. And this was 2004. This was when the roadside bombs were starting to go off, and it really was getting hot. This was after George Bush's mission accomplished.
that one. Yeah, it was after
The irony.
After they captured Saddam Hussein, and we were in Germany when the capture of Saddam Hussein aired on the news, and we were upset. Me and my best man were like, we missed our war. We missed our war. You know, because we were grunts, so infantry, that's what we wanted.
Yeah, you wanted to shoot somebody.
Yeah, to keep it real, yeah.
Of course, I would have too.
Yeah. And when we get there, man, dude, it
You
didn't take long.
had your war. You feel like, oh, I have my war.
Yeah, but it's not a... I don't want to sound cliche, but it's definitely not like the movies. It's not... I guess I was expecting a fair fight. Here's an enemy, here's us. We shoot back and forth. They die, we go home. It's a victory. It was nothing like that.
Imagine Americans wanting a fair fight.
Yeah.
The biggest military in the world invading guys who fight in sandals. Yeah. You know, like what's fair about that? You know.
Well, no, they were effective. I'm going to give them credit as far as, you know, those IEDs, those improvised explosive devices, they were pretty technical with cell phones that you can call and blow them up when you drive by, garage door openers with sensors, so when you drive by it goes off.
Yeah.
It's pretty technical.
Did you see anybody get blown up? Did you have buddies die?
Yeah, dude. I've seen Iraqis get blown up. I've seen my friends get blown up. Yeah, dude, there was two big major ones. A car bomb that killed 22 Iraqis. They were Iraqi National Guard, meaning that we trained them to protect their own country. And one of those insurgents didn't really like that too much. Drove an SUV right up to a bus full of them and just boom.
Yeah.
Through the bus like 100 yards and just pieces of charred meat everywhere.
Now, how did that affect you coming home? Did you feel like you had PTSD from it?
No, I thought I was cool. I know when I first saw it, I remember thinking this is a nightmare. I said that a couple times, but this is a nightmare. The thing that caught me off guard with that one was there was a staff sergeant, and I want to say his name, but I won't. I don't say names because I respect their, but man, I looked up to this guy, still do, solid dude. He was in the invasion of Baghdad. So he was in the initial push, 2003 up. He goes to our unit. Now guess what, buddy? You got to come back to Iraq, round 2. Some guys were on round 3 when we were barely on our round 1. So when that car bomb goes off and we're there picking up pieces, he looks at me and he's like, man, well, I think I've seen too much. When I go back, I got to get help and I got to talk to somebody.
Wow.
But I was 20 years old. I'm like, this dude was buff, solid looking, square jawline. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like on a mental note.
So did you talk to somebody when you got stateside? You were too young. You figured, I'll just move on.
Bro. And I like, you have to think of the culture. You have to think of the mindset. I wanted to be in law enforcement. A lot of military guys want to be in law enforcement or want to do other things. They don't want to ever say anything. This is me speaking for a lot of other people. We don't ever want to jeopardize our future by saying, hey, my mind is screwed up because I seen this. What if they flag you? What if they say, no, you can't carry a gun because you're not right mentally? So all of us just shut up and said, nope. I remember they asked us, you ever see any of your friends get killed? No. You ever seen Iraqis get killed? No. You ever shoot anybody? No. And they were all no's, but they were all true.
So you just wanted to make sure your file was completely clean.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to go into corrections? Why not the SWAT team, the FBI, DEA? There's so many other bureaus, probably pay better too.
So as a kid, I was hyper. I wanted to be on the SWAT team. As a kid, my idea of kicking in doors, it got me excited and it infatuated me. Well, in Iraq, I kicked in doors almost every single night. We were raiding houses, snatching up dudes, targets. We were doing work, right? So I kind of got that out of my system there. And then to be real, coming from Brawley, those cops in Brawley and those small towns are assholes, straight up assholes. They have nothing better to do than book you for a speeding ticket,
Sure.
a seatbelt ticket, or a tinted window ticket. And then they get mouthy with you and disrespectful and crazy. I had really discontent for police officers. It wasn't until I came to San Diego and saw some real police officers that are dealing with real police work that hey, these dudes are cool. Some of these dudes are cool.
Right. But coming from Brawley, you didn't really have a lot of respect for ordinary cops. And maybe that's why you didn't want to go into law enforcement that way.
Yeah, I think I had a discontent for police officers coming from Brawley. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you chose to become a CO. How did you end up at Centinela in the same prison that your father worked at? Was that grandfathered in? Were you able to? You didn't get any kind of nepotism in that way?
Nah. So every nepotism does happen, but
sure.
But the state goes through its phases, right? It all depends on which prisons need staff members at that time, where they need bodies, what's open, what's closed. There was a hiring freeze. So I got back from Iraq in 2005. I didn't get hired until 2006. Mm-hmm. I partied my ass off. When they called me and said, you got an academy date, November 27, 2006, what prison do you want to work at? I said, Centinela State Prison. They're like, cool, you got it. That easy.
Wow.
That's, to me, it's kind of rare. People don't tell me their stories.
Right. Yeah, because there's so many prisons that you could get shipped off to Crescent City if they had you working at Pelican Bay or something like that.
Pelican Bay, High Desert, Salinas Valley.
So you got kind of lucked out. You went back home in a way.
Because my goal, so check this out, there's Calipat and there's Centinela. And on my channel, I always give credit to Calipat because of the not repetition, but reputation that it has for being violent. Mm-hmm. So the reputation. So my godfather worked at Calipat. And that was my plan. I had a conversation with him. I'm kind of glad I did. I said, Nino, would you prefer that I work at Calipat or Centinela? He said, go to Centinela. Same pay, less of a headache.
Interesting. So Centinela, in Oregon, where I serve time, it's pretty basic. There's minimum security, medium security, and maximum security prisons. In California, they're more delineated by yard levels.
Yeah.
Level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Obviously, 3 and 4 are the highest security levels, the most violent. What was Centinela at the time that you started working there?
All level 3 GP, general population.
Gotcha. So you had no protective custody units when you first started working at Centinela?
At that time, no.
Gotcha. And what was that like? You just start off, how long is the academy? I didn't even know COs had an academy.
So I went to a 16-week academy, 1-6.
Right.
In Stockton, California, they were running two simultaneous.
Another beautiful town, Stockton.
Yeah, dude, it was like another weird thing that the state was doing, running a academy out of a former female prison that was shut down.
Now, what kind of training do you go through?
The whole 9.
So do they hit you with mace?
Yep.
They hit you with the pepper spray,
Yep.
right? What else goes on?
They hit you with a pepper spray. They hit you with a CN gas. So the CN gas will make you burn. I don't know if you've ever been exposed to it, but it makes your skin burn, your eyes burn. Mm-hmm. CS gas, oh man, that's the stuff they gave us in the army. Like that, you can't breathe. Feels like you're dying.
Now, why the different gases? These are obviously, I assume they do that and it subject you guys to that during training. So in case there is a riot on a yard and somebody's got to hit the tear gas, right? And you get hit in the face, you need to be able to withstand that. What are the different gases used for? Why do they have these different kinds of gases?
So
what situations?
You're right about being exposed to it. So that the first time you're not exposed to it is in a riot, and then you're out of the fight. Mm-hmm. At that time, CS gas, we used to, CN, cry now, CS, cry sooner. That's so cry now, cry sooner. CS was not on the line. It was not on the line for officers to have on their person or accessible. The crisis response team, the SWAT team, were the only ones authorized to use that. Recently, about a year ago, maybe 2, maybe 3, CS came on the line. And boy, did it come on the line.
Wow. So that it used to be just used as a last case scenario.
Correct.
Now ordinary cops on the yard have it strapped to their bodies. And when are you authorized to deploy it?
So use of force options, right? How different types of use of force. You can use your hands, punching, right? Kicking, headbutt, whatever. That'd be
you could just go beat up a mother.
No, that would be physical. That would be kind of threw me off right there. That would be non-conventional use of force, physical force, right? So if I grab somebody and I throw them down with my hand, that's physical force, right? If I do anything that I was never trained on because I'm getting attacked, right? That would be labeled as non-conventional. Like I'd throw a jab and I'd knock them out or something.
Right. So when you're being attacked, basically anything goes.
Yeah, my dad would tell me that too. He would say, hey, if you don't have time to reach for your spray, reach for your baton, use your hands. And that makes sense because how many times have we seen people get lumped up? Boom, boom, boom,
All
boom,
the time.
boom. Yeah.
All the time.
And before they know it, they're already knocked out or blood battered.
Yeah. Yeah. But when are you allowed to like use CS gas? Like in what scenario would you use it?
This is when you can use force. So CS, you can use any use of force options in order to overcome resistance, effect custody, subdue an attacker, and gain compliance with a lawful order.
Yeah. So anything. That just sounds like
not anything. They have to be present. That criteria has to be met.
Right. But that's the criteria for basically anything from a fight to a stabbing to somebody not even complying with an order.
That changed.
So when in real life would an officer, a CO reasonably decide to deploy tear gas, not necessarily in a riot?
You can throw a grenade in a fight.
And is that common? Like, is that
100%?
Just, or how does it work? Or do you just,
it's a grenade like this. Let's say the OC instantaneous blast. So it's pepper spray, but in powdered form. So you pull the pin, you throw it underhand, and poof, a cloud of white just engulfs the suspect and the victim.
Right.
And yeah, the thing with chemical agents, they fight through it. You could fight through it.
Right. If you're mad enough, if you want somebody bad enough.
Crazy on a mission, crazed. Yeah, you'll easily fight through it.
Wow. And you got hit with that during training.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That sucks, though. Bad.
What was the other thing that stood out about training? That like it's some wild shit. Was that like the toughest part about it, or?
Well, coming from the Army, that was not tough at all, man.
Are you pretty fit? Like you're an in shape dude, trained with weapons, saw combat. I did time where the COs were like these white women with muffin tops, you know, and of course they would end up getting laid out. Like some dude would get mad and would just punch him. One punch would drop them and they would, you know, get a shattered jaw. Like, but in California, do most of the guys like you?
No.
They're just fat alcoholic dudes named Clint with white boys and shit.
I don't want to be rude, disrespectful, but I also want to keep it real.
Yeah.
100%. Overweight, drinking,
racist. Do you see a lot of like racism? Because these are people coming from small, you know, uneducated
I did not work up north, right? I didn't work at High Desert, Susanville.
Yeah.
Funny you said racist
Susie's
and I said
house.
Susanville. But I've heard stories, you know, that up there they get down different.
Yeah.
I was down south, a bunch of Mexicans, and like we didn't have much blacks in our community, but we embraced them just like they were Mexican.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they were pretty much Mexican.
Yeah. So you go through training, graduate with flying colors. Now, boom, it's the real deal. We're in Centinela. What was your first assignment? What were your early years like?
My first assignment was working in a gymnasium that had bunk beds in there and dorm. So it was a dorm.
Gotcha.
With like 100 inmates.
Okay.
The problem with that, well, one, it's a dorm setting, so it's kind of rowdy and wild. The other problem with that is they had just rioted previously to me getting there. So that whole gym was full of Mexicans, Southsiders, Sureños, and Paisas, the people from down south.
What does that mean, people from down south?
Like the immigrants, the Paisas?
Like real Mexicans, not Chicanos, like Spanish-speaking
down
Mexicans.
South. Yeah, from like Mexico City, Sinaloa, Jalisco, all these places.
Yeah.
So that's not cool because they're turning all their attention on green. They don't have to be on their bunks looking out for the blacks, looking out for the whites,
Right.
looking out for the others.
Right.
They're with the homies.
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody's so really it's just them versus the COs.
100 versus 2
Wow. So it'd be two of you guys in a dorm with 100 inmates?
at the podium with one gunner, which I can go into a whole story about how there was a worthless gunner up there when we almost got attacked.
So you got a guy with a gun with an M, what is it, an M60?
Mini 14,
A Mini 14, that's right. And live rounds
223.
in a gym
Yeah.
that serves as the dorm.
Yep.
And it's just you walking around.
Yep.
What are you most afraid of in a situation like this, in a work environment like that?
What am I most afraid of is getting stomped out by 100 dudes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm most afraid of.
Did that happen?
It came close numerous times.
Did it happen to other guards? Did you hear about?
Not stomped out. I mean, yeah, guards get stomped out for sure. One guy medically got retired.
Wow. Did you hear when you were there at Centinela in your time, what were some of like the worst like staff assaults you
They're
saw?
bad. They're bad.
Did anybody get shanked, sliced?
Yes.
What happened? Can you tell us about that?
There was so many. There was like, because it happened on Delta Yard, on Bravo Yard, on Charlie Yard. So Charlie Yard, there was a cop, a CO, kind of like, he probably had 1 or 2 years less than me. So he's pretty equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him too. And then at that time, it converted to level 4. I didn't speak on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it got violent. And big old white dude comes up to him from yard recall, starts sticking the dude in the back of the neck. The partner, I mean, you know how hearsay goes, like, look, starts panicking or whatever. The dude throws a knife down and gets down and proned out. They come and just put the dude in handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even use force.
Yeah.
After that, they elevated the podium. So the podium was on ground level like this.
Right.
They put like a 7-inch, 8-inch platform
Right.
with bars railing,
Mm-hmm.
and then the yellow lines painted on the ground.
Right.
And then they turned the podium, I think, so that the control booth could have a shot.
Right. And did that guy survive?
Yeah, he survived. Thankfully, you know, and
Now, what kind of weapons like were you finding, you know, in the feds? It's, you know, those guys are carrying around big knives, bone crushers.
Yep.
Did you see that? Did you find that at Centinela?
yeah, the whites. You know, I think about weapons, I think about whites.
Yeah. Whites are known for being ruthless and bloodthirsty in American prisons.
I do.
What
Yeah.
what were the white gangs at Centinela?
You had the Nazi lowriders, you had Peni, and they're all following under one umbrella. But a crazy thing that happened
Is that the Aryan Brotherhood?
Yeah.
Right. The AB is the mega organization.
And at that time, all those guys, anybody was locked up in Pelican Bay.
Right. And
At that time.
and they're giving orders to the rest of the prisons in California. So what was some of the hustle? What was some of the running that the white gangs that call themselves the Nazi lowriders, which is the dumbest racism I've ever heard. You ever seen a white guy in a lowrider? I'll wait. Anyways, what was the? I
was going to say Travis Barker.
He was the only one. That's right. Exactly. There was Travis Barker's. He was the exception. What was some of the hustle? What did they control? While I was locked up, the white boys, the Hells Angels, you know, they had the meth on lock coming into the prison. What were they doing in Centinela?
So back then I was young and new and inexperienced, right? So I'm just seeing violence and thinking it's all one. Like, I don't know. You're learning who's who, what's what, who's running what. I don't remember the whites pushing dope, right? It's going to vary. It's going to vary on who has that lane or whatever you want to call it, window of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I don't recall any whites having, I'm not saying that they didn't. I just didn't know who was who or what was what.
Okay.
When it came to that.
But what kind of drugs were you finding? What was the hustle in there?
Oh, heroin for sure. Tobacco was huge because tobacco was banned a couple years back back. So tobacco was huge.
It became such a black market. It was, the inmates loved that.
Well, it was selling more than heroin at one point. And like, meth. That's it. The whites were doing meth. For sure. They were, of course, you know, in the streets or whatever, but yeah, meth.
Right. And when the violence occurred, like, give us like a weekly rundown of the violence that would happen at Centinela, just on an average week.
Okay. Average week during this period of time. Second watch, You release for yard in the morning, 9 a.m. Level 4s, they might let their whole yard go through, right? They may or may not have a stabbing there, but for sure they're going to have a stabbing at shift change, 1:45 p.m., 1:50, 1:55 p.m. All right, they're going to stab the shit out of somebody. They're going to get life flighted out. When we come in on third watch, the shift from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., we look around, we search. All right, cool, open it up, resume program. So they literally killed the dude on second watch in the morning shift one time, hit him in the heart, and then they opened up program on third watch. And this was before.
This is before it really got hot.
This is because now you can have an officer get stabbed and then the cops get upset like, oh, that's messed up. You let him up. The following day. We want to see him locked down for numerous years for doing this.
Right.
Send a message. And I agree 100%, right? But I saw this change years ago.
So somebody could get stabbed and killed, and later that day, yards open up.
Hours later.
Back to business.
Wow. But you got to understand that's coming from a top. The headquarters, Sacramento, gives these inmates their program, give them their program. So you asked, how did a normal day during that week? Yeah, there was a stabbing.
Why would it happen on shift change?
I think they were giving us the respect to let us go home.
Right.
And then the distraction of people exchanging equipment, not looking, signing in to their shift, right? I mean, everybody knew it was going to kick off. But hey, yeah, it's like, hey, hurry up, give me my shit. Let me get out of here, right? If you're getting relieved, you got to get out of here.
So, and when that happens, when somebody gets stabbed on the yard, what does that look like? Does an alarm go off? Did they make everybody get on the ground? Does everybody get searched?
There was a time.
What's the protocol?
Depends if we've seen the stabbing or not.
Mm-hmm.
You can look across the yard. You'll see a guy red, blood, right? You get on the radio. Observation, put the yard down. That's common language. So you're telling the observation post, the guy up in the gun tower, or girl up in the gun tower, to put the yard down. They get on the microphone that looks like this. Get down.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the alarm. Inmates all take a seat. Observation, put the yard down. We got an inmate bleeding over here by the gym door. Yeah, motherfucker falls out. You look, yeah, dude has holes leaking, right? You go look at the toilets, you find the weapon in the toilet. And then you first aid, right? You got to start looking at knuckles. You start stripping dudes out.
Right. So if everybody's on the yard, does everybody get the knuckle check? Does everybody?
It all depends on how the sergeant wants to handle their business.
Right.
Because I was a sergeant at one point too, and everything varies.
And so the sergeant is the one that's in charge of basically trying to get an arrest after a stabbing.
But to keep it real with you, we're not always looking to get an arrest, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
No, tell me, please.
I mean, is it going to matter? I want to sound like a dick, but is it going to matter to us or not if that person gets caught or not? Was that a dick thing to say?
Yeah. No. I find it fascinating. I'm fascinated because it's the government that's basically sanctioning or allowing the killing of its people. And I find it very interesting because, in Oregon, if somebody got stabbed, we were all locked down for a minimum 60 days. People that had nothing to do with it would get pulled in. I mean, it was rare in Oregon that somebody got stabbed in prison. So obviously it was investigated like it was a real homicide. But it sounds like in California, it happens so much that it's just people just get the guards get desensitized to it. And it's like, just let these animals kill each other.
So it's a combination of everything. And I'm exposing that, when I talk about things, desensitized, right? You're seeing this on a daily basis. It's now become normal. Number two, people always said, oh, you're a CO, you should be acting better than those inmates. I talked to a former inmate recently. I interviewed him and he's like, no, that's different. You're in there with us. You're in there. You're operating in there with us. It's about fear. It's about violence. It's about intimidation, right? So you got to adopt that or else you're going to get eaten alive. Ain't nobody exempt from the rules of prison.
Not even COs.
Especially not COs. Especially not COs.
Yeah.
Right? There's policy and procedures we have to follow. And that's what makes it stressful because you have to mind your P's and Q's. You have to follow the book. Right? But like politics. It's politics. It's business. The same way that dude shook my dad's hand up in Oakland. He knew what time it was. Hey, this dude got stabbed. He got. That dude, whatever he was doing to get stabbed, dealing dope, incurring a debt, he got, right? Are we going to make an attempt to find the suspect? Yeah, we're going to make an attempt. If we don't do it, are we going to be heartbroken? No.
Yeah.
No. It's not like in the
most
streets.
people just sounds like they're trying to get home.
Correct. It's not like in the streets. You get an old lady that's victimized. She's, minding her own business at Bond with grocery bags, and she gets cold clocked and robbed for it. Yeah, let's go find that scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let's rowdy up the troop. This is the sharks are at play here.
So let's get back to when you're young in the system. You're working a dorm. It's 100 on 2.
Yeah.
What? Just tell me about some of these confrontations. Tell me, when you almost got stomped out, when you almost got the blade.
They didn't have blades because they were level 3s. This was a weird scenario. Level 3 inmates housed inside of a gym. The buildings outside were level 4.
Right. But why would a level 3 not have a blade if it's a lower security level? Wouldn't it be easier to get stuff?
Reflecting back now, they probably did have the blades, considering, imagine the level 4 inmates. All they have to do is tell the youngsters, hold this for us. Tell them if they say no, they're going to get got. They're going to get stabbed.
Yeah.
So yeah, more than likely they definitely were holding weapons, right? But they didn't use. This was during chow. The gym door and the chow hall door were side by side. So you just crack both doors and they kind of just flow out from the gym to the chow hall. Well, that would be a good time for us to do our locker searches. And again, I wasn't by the book. I was learning, right? So I'm following suit with my partner who was very experienced. He had been in some staff assaults, bad ones. Got his neck broken with titanium plates drilled in here in his spinal cord.
Wow.
And we're in a locker. It's common practice, good practice for one person to be searching while the other person's watching to make sure we don't get sucker punched from behind. Some husky, heavy set, fat southerner, young, comes in. He's like, hey, what the fuck are you guys doing? You pigs. And I'm like, oh, like it just caught me like very out of pocket. But as he's doing that, they're all trickling in. All these southerners are falling. My partner like, hey, what the fuck you say? Come here. Snatched him up by the arm. I thought when he snatched him up, I thought he was going to kick it off. Like I thought the dude was going to yank or punch. He got him. He walked him all the way back to the wall. By our podium, there was a counselor office. We're facing this way. All inmates are now piling, making a U, making a wall.
Surrounding him.
We were surrounded. We were surrounded for sure. And no alarm had went off. No radio transmission had went off. I didn't reach for any use of force options. I had my hands up here. If it's about to crack and I'm like, they're watching me, I'm watching them. This guy's still yelling. I don't really know what this dude's problem was. Some people are just pain in the asses. Yeah. This guy was a pain in the ass. Hey, you pigs, get your fucking hands off me, blah, blah, blah. I look up at the gunner. It was a female. She is sitting down in her chair like this. I look at the southerners, they look up, look at her, and they're like, and I had that feeling like, oh, fuck. She should have been standing up with a weapon outside of that grill thing and say, hey, everybody get the fuck back.
Yeah.
And that was not the case, right? Luckily, my partner had the wherewithal and the experience to say, hey, everybody get the fuck back. I'm going to put this gym down right now and get all of you guys for inciting a riot. Whatever he said to them, they all backed off. And I was like, holy fuck. And then everybody backed off and then went back up to the podium and was just like, God damn.
Yeah.
That was close.
Yeah. And it's, did you feel like you were worried about, gang indictments, like people that just hitting the yard, just hitting the cell block, like putting in work to gain stripes? Was that something that happened where it's like, okay, I'm a new Sereno, I'm fresh in, I'm 20 years old, I'm going to go beat up a CO to prove my worth? That
was happening.
Yeah.
It was a different time frame back then. Lifers, if you had a life, you were not going home. You were not going home. You were not paroling.
No.
You could have 25 to life, 20 to life. My even dad would tell me back in the day, oh, they're not going home. They're never going home.
Even if you had 15 to life,
15
that
to
life meant
you got
you
that
were
L. Yeah, you got that life.
You go before the board, but they just denied you, right?
Always. You weren't going home.
So did you find then because you know everybody's paperwork, when you knew somebody had an L, did you make special care to leave them watch them harder or treat them differently because you know they don't have anything to lose because they're never going home?
No, because to tell you the truth, the ones that had the life at that time were very, very respectful. Very respectful. They didn't play no games. That was their world. That was their home. They made the best out of a shitty situation.
Yeah, and they don't want funk every day because they got to be there forever.
That's it, dude. They would even check the youngsters. Like that's why I appreciated working with those level 4s and those lifers at that time. It was those youngsters pain in the asses like that one. It was one of many at that time that just trying to impress somebody, make a name for themselves, earn bones, beat up a cop. Why not?
Did you see any stabbings? What was the craziest thing that kicked off in the dorm, in the actual dorm? Or did they save most of their work for the yard or the chow hall? Like, where did most of the work
I've been
go
in
down?
riots in dorms, but it was another dorm on another yard.
What was that like?
Oh, shit. Actually, that was 1, 2, 3. I've been in 3 dorm riots like that. It was chaos. One time I was up in the gun post. We had 2 gunners, which is rare. The reason there was 2 gunners and 4 officers on the floor because there was staff assaults happening that whole entire month. So the warden or the powers above said, hey, we need extra cops on the floor in these gyms. And they didn't care. They kicked it off, the blacks and the Mexicans.
Oh, wow. And it's just, and you know when it's going to happen. Do you feel that the
varies.
tension?
It varies, man. It's, it can kick off spontaneously, right? If disrespect on the spot is going to kick off, or if it's brewing, you feel it. You feel it.
So
everybody feels it.
So it's the blacks versus the Mexicans. Everybody's fighting. Everybody's throwing shit. Are people getting stabbed?
This was
in the
level
dorm?
3 in the dorm. Stabbed.
Wow.
Level 3s.
What was the worst kind of stabbing? Like, do you remember having to life flight anybody out?
I rode on a little airplane. I rode on an airplane from from Imperial Airport. The white dude that got hit in the throat to UCSD trauma, San Diego. We landed in El Cajon, got in a little ambulance, and drove. This was a white dude on the level 4 Charlie yard, got hit in the throat. You had to weigh under like 200 pounds. At the time, I was like $180 or whatever. We flew. This dude is in the bottom. They put saline in the wound. And he goes, what the fuck is that? And the nurse is like, oh my God, can you taste that? And he's like, yeah, what is it? She's like, doctor, we got to get him upstairs right now. I guess they hit the dude's esophagus or wherever they hit. That shit that they were cleaning out the wound went in. And they like, when they said that, this dude's eyes like panicked. And he's like, can I use your cell phone? Because I had my cell phone. I wasn't supposed to, but he's like, I want to call my mom. And it's a fucked up situation. I'm not going to let the dude use my cell phone. But you could tell this dude what if he would have died, you know? Yeah. They rushed him up to the OR and fucking did whatever they did.
Wow. And that was after a riot.
That was just a regular hit.
That was just a hit. Wow.
That
So
was
you
just a
have
hit.
you have people getting stabbed in riots. You have people getting stabbed in hits.
There was another good one on Charlie Yard, the level 4. So the vocational wall, there's a wall, and in the back they got, they sew boxers for the inmate, like alterations. They do like, incentives and stuff like that back there. Heavy machinery. This is downtime. Downtime meaning ain't nothing going on at this particular time. You could eat during this time. I'm eating my mom's lasagna, chilling, and then you hear code 2, Charlie Vogue. And at code 2, there's code 1, code 2, and code 3. Code 3 is a riot. All hell has broken loose. We need everybody. A code 1 is a one-on-one fight. Code 2 is like in the middle. Like, hey, we need a little bit more staff than usual. We start hauling ass over there, thinking like, code 2, Charlie Vogue. Why? How? It should be limited back there. I get there, dude. There's 2 white dudes, bloody pulps. Dude, they got their eye sockets crushed, like their back broken, like their face broke, and stabbed, dude, by shanks, ice pick type shanks, like long screws. Probably it was 4 whites on 2 whites. Oh, they tried to kill him.
Yeah,
for sure they tried to kill him.
I mean, just brutal and probably punishment because the whites don't fight. Traditionally, especially in the feds, the whites do not fight. There's no fighting. If you have a problem, it's got to be handled with a knife. Was that the same at Centinela?
That was the same at Centinela, but that particular hit right there was because there was a group of their own, and I kind of got corrected on this. They were starting a group, USAS, United Skins, Aryan, Associate or something. And while it upset the people above. It upset the people above where all orders went out, get rid of them.
Punishment.
Get rid of them.
Yeah, they keep their own in line.
And they got rid of them by force. And that was happening at Calipat. That boom, boom. They were hitting. They were trying to kill these dudes.
Yeah.
Boom, boom.
Yeah. I can't believe they survived. That's brutal.
I can't believe those 2 dudes survived. Yeah.
Now, would you take they leave the shanks after a stabbing? Usually they just leave the weapon there?
When I showed up, yeah, you could see them on the floor. You could see them.
Now, did the cops take that and give it to forensics to take fingerprints off of? Like, what's the protocol when you see like this attempted murder?
Evidence preservation. It all depends on which prison you're at and how much experience people have. But you know, if it's not gonna, you can secure the weapon, right? Especially if it's still chaotic or whatever. But usually leave everything in place, take photographs, put the placards, handcuff, zip tie people, and then just start taking photographs and hold their ID by them. I mean, it's all going to court.
Yeah,
right. They're gonna go face the DA. Yeah.
So that you go to court now. If you get caught in a stabbing, but the guy lives, the 2 people. Let's say it's a knife fight. That happens to the feds. There's knife fights, right? It's people that settling a beef and they're using blades. Did that happen at Centinela? And if that happens, what happens? What's the aftermath? If a guy stabs a cop and gives up, what do they do with that guy? Like, do you send him to the hole, or do you just send him to isolation for a few weeks and then ship him out?
You should. Man, I've been in some bullshit, man. I was involved. I was a sergeant, an inmate, a white inmate. He was a crazy EOP, enhanced outpatient, mentally ill. He tied a weapon to his hand with a bed sheet. He tied the weapon, wove it through his fingers, a shank, and stabbed one of my officers in the building. Boom, boom. Right, my officer's like, the fuck? Luckily, we have the stab-resistant vest.
Right.
Hit him in the chest, hit him in the bicep, hit him in the armpit. He takes out his baton and cracks this dude on top of the head. Rightfully so, that's lethal force. That's considered lethal force.
Yeah.
But it met the criteria, right? You're getting stabbed right here. Boom, cracks him. The dude drops and gets back up like a zombie because he was high on meth for like 5 days. And that's when I come in. And then that's when all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose, like for a good few minutes.
Did you see any of these COs really because I'm interested in the pushback. Did you see, we talked to Unique last week, good friend of the show. He was tortured by COs after a riot. They put him in the basement at Lewisburg for 18 hours. They broke all his teeth out, starved him, didn't give him any water, broke his arms. Do you notice that kind of corruption, that kind of brutality in your time in the state system?
This is the way I look at it, man. You have a period of window of opportunity. If you're getting attacked like how I just said that individual was getting attacked. Our policy doesn't state I have to hit a person with 50% of my strength. I have to hit a person with 63% of my strength. The way I looked at it, I'm going to knock this motherfucker out. Right? I'm going to hit him with everything I got.
Sure, that's self-defense, but I'm talking about retaliation. We all know the stories. You can, and you're here. This is what we have you here for.
Right.
What was the retaliation that you saw, if any, or knew about?
Maybe dudes bumping into walls on their way out of the housing unit. You know what I mean? Like bumping into shit with their face on the way out to something. Maybe attempting to headbutt an officer on the way out and then taking a spill and going to the ground. As far as like real extra, real long term, I didn't see nothing like that. It was just kind of what I stated.
Yeah.
Like, hey, dude, continue to get crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, continue to get crazy from point A to point B. He got dropped. He got dropped. He got dropped. He got dropped.
What about gladiator fights?
That would be the whole mixing general population and sensitive needs yard. And I was part of that. I was on the boots on the ground for that. But those orders came from the top.
Right. So what was that like though? It
was not cool.
But when you heard orders from the top, you got a direct order from Sacramento stating, "Hey, we want you to put in." What did that look like? Who told you, and then how did you deploy that order?
So a lot of it was shock and disbelief initially. It's like, you can't believe this is happening. There is no communication between the higher ranks and the lower ranks in the California Department of Corrections. Coming from prior military, that is a huge issue. It can be in McDonald's. If the manager at McDonald's ain't talking to the cashier register, fucking money could go flying, fucking cheeseburgers can hit the ground. Like, this is prison. This is lives. So when somebody puts a piece of paper, hey, start mixing these two dudes, first thing I did was make extra copies of that paper because I knew if I get sued down the line, or when I get sued down the line, I'm gonna show them this and be like, look, you fucking assholes, you made me do this.
Right. And you have no idea why this order is coming through.
No, because we're not in those meetings up in Sacramento. We're not talking to the governor. We're not talking to the stakeholders, as they like to say.
So what was that order? When you were boots on the ground, what did that order tell you to do? And what gangs were involved when that happened?
All of them. So it was the Southsiders. So I know we said the whites are extremely dangerous because they are, and violent and deadly because they are. But the Southsiders have numbers. Right? They will mop you up in sheer numbers, right? And they're ferocious as well. I never worked with Northerners, so I don't have that experience. But they have politics. They have common sense. You are not going to allow a child molester or a rapist to be on your yard. That's what they were doing, mixing them.
So and what would happen when a child molester hit a yard full of Sureños?
They would beat them up, they would stab them, they would slash them. A lot of the times we didn't see. Especially at Donovan, there was a lot of blind spots. So again, you would see a guy all slashed up, hey, hit your alarm, put the yard down to get this guy medical attention. These Southerners, these Sureños were hoping, and this makes sense, hoping that they would get put in handcuffs and get sent away to the whole ADSEG so they no longer have to be there. Because if they stay there, they are deemed no good by their own people.
Right. So you can't even be near somebody who's got a jacket because they're either getting stabbed up.
That makes you no good.
Yeah. So something has to give immediately. Like how quickly when they release somebody into the general population did they get hit?
I'm going to tell you a story that you may not believe. I didn't believe it either. There was a warden, right? And ADSEG, the whole. There was a previous SNY inmate. He got endorsed to go to Alpha Yard, which is general population. So you had a PC, get blessed by the warden and all the above. So
why would a inmate in protective custody, an inmate I assume who has a sex crime or
a dropout, sex crime.
Exactly. Somebody who's
a rat.
Somebody who's hot, somebody who's targeted. Why would he ever want to go to the general population?
No, he wouldn't.
Yard?
They forced him. That was the mixing that came from the top. He didn't want to go.
He just have somebody knock on his cell door, roll up. You're going to Gen Pop.
Well, bro, I saw some corruption, straight corruption where this other warden, right? He's a warden of Mule Creek right now. He's like, hey, grab this guy as he is and drag his ass to the yard. Everybody's looking like, you're crazy. We don't do that. That stopped in the 90s. We just don't. That's illegal. You can't grab somebody against their will and drag them. That's excessive, unnecessary use of force. Do it. So they were more concerned about what Sacramento wanted them. They're yes men.
Right.
So they would rather, the fucked up thing about
But tell us, finish this though. What happened?
This was another warden, the previous warden before that one. He says, take this guy as is to Alpha Yard. Well, he's in ADSEG, the whole, so he has a special little red jumpsuit on, like a paper jumpsuit. It's clear that he's in isolation. The two cops, not knowing any better, hey, is the warden telling me what to do? Grabs the inmate, let's go, get up. They walk to the gate. No sooner do they let him in, they start hitting him. Boom, 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 boom. Alarm goes down, stabbing him. Alarm goes down. They said, because I wasn't there, my friend told me, he was a lieutenant. The warden comes over, hey, who brought his ass like this in the red jumpsuit? And everybody's looking like, you did, sir. He's like, no, I didn't. These dudes get amnesia. They go back on their word. Mm-hmm. And this is why I'm so against that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So he goes back. My friend was a lieutenant. He's like, hey, guys, tell me what happened. Yeah, sir. Like, lieutenant, like the warden told us to bring him as is. There was an associate warder trying to kiss that warden's ass, calls and said, give me 2 names. Give me 2 names of officers that I can burn. For doing, and burn. He's like, burn? Wow. You want 2 names? How about your name and the warden's name?
Right.
If you ever fucking call over here like that again, boom, and hung up.
So, and when something like, were you ever given an order to bring, I mean, you were. Now tell us about when they started, when you got that order, Tell us about how you transferred those prisoners from PC to Gen Pop and what happened.
So it varied, right? Because I'm not a dummy, I'm not a robot, and I have common sense. Sometimes I would look out for the inmate, especially if I knew he was going to get mopped up.
Yeah.
I would say, hey, bro, just say that you're suicidal. Everybody else is saying they're suicidal around here. Use that card, right? Like I'm trying to give him an out.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to put him in a bad spot.
Right.
So neither of us get wrecked.
Right. So if you had an order to take a guy from protective custody to mainline, he could say, hey, I'm suicidal, and that would stop the transfer.
I would do all kinds of little tricks, right? Little tricks that I'm having to think on my feet to try to get out of a jam. I wasn't always successful.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So what happened? Tell us about a time that you weren't successful where you were
Big
forced.
ass dorms, minimum, Donovan, big giant dorm, look like a college dorm, and another one.
And these are minimum security.
Minimum security. They didn't care at all. Minimum. I mean, they're inmates. They're following politics.
Yeah.
The politics overrule anything.
So you're at the COs at these institutions are taking orders from Sacramento.
Yep.
And the gangbangers are taking orders from Pelican Bay.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Okay. So tell us about the time in minimum first when you saw something kick off after you transferred.
I was on the crisis response team, the SWAT team.
Yeah.
I was a lieutenant at the time. They gave me one of those 40 millimeters, one of those less lethal rounds with a satchel with rounds, right? And I'm pretty effective. Like I know how to handle myself with a weapon. We were staged. Why would we stage? Why would they stage the SWAT team? Because they knew what was going to happen. Right? Like, isn't that already like red flags or ding, ding, ding?
Of course.
Like, I could say this now. It was my job back then. So I'm just doing what I'm told and getting paid.
Right.
Right? Did you hear the radio? Okay, we're moving them. We're moving them from here. We're on the bus. Okay, now we're moving them to here.
And who was this guy? Do you know what his crime was? Do you know what the guy's paperwork was?
It was like 10 and 10. 10 we're going to go to this area, 10 we're going to go to this area.
All people from protective custody. And are these child molesters, a mix of everybody?
They weren't child molesters because there was a minimum yard. I believe there was a rule or you can't have a child molester, but they were definitely dropouts, protective custody.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. All right. And these are mostly Latinos, Serranos, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So you had dorms that were full of general population.
Yeah.
You have 10 and 10 SNY PC inmates. We walk them in lines. We're waiting. We're staged. Waiting. We know it's going to kick off.
And are you sweating? Like, are you like,
no,
man?
Dude, I was in Iraq. Like, this is nothing to me. Especially if they're not attacking us.
Did you kind of look forward to the action?
Yes.
Kind of broke the day up, right?
I looked forward to the action, but it didn't sit well with me, and I'm going to get to that right now.
Okay. But tell us what happened.
So it was well known throughout the prison, right? Everybody's monitoring the radios. We're coordinating it.
Mm-hmm.
You got dorm 1, dorm 2.
And this is at a minimum.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Level 1s. Level 1s, dude will be going home in 1 or 2 years.
Right. Which in Oregon, this would be guys there for like DUIs, like almost where I'm from. I'm just trying to give a perspective to how chill it should be.
I mean, fist fights.
Yeah.
There's
fist fights all the time. But what did you see when you brought the PC inmates in?
So we were waiting for it, just waiting for for it to kick off. And then you hear it. Center control, code 3, housing unit 21. Hit the alarm. Get down, get the fuck down, get down. Pop, pop, pop. Like, you just hear it cracking off, right? They were trained, they had to go this way. Short. And then as soon as we heard this one kick off, we went. We shouldn't have went, but it didn't matter because they kicked off simultaneously.
Wow. So 10 inmates in one dorm, 10 in the other one, both kicked off at the same time.
Right? So they kicked off. Actually, this one kicked off. We respawned here. They had not kicked off yet. It was like a Mexican standoff. It was weird. They had their bags of property. The sharks are looking at the piranhas. Everybody's like tense, right? It's cracking off over here. I'm in there with a gun, with a 40 millimeter. Everybody's in there. We got black patches, so we look extra special and special force type.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, they didn't give 2 fucks. They kicked it off right then and there.
What happened? What did they do?
There was the dorm setting was so weird, dude. Imagine a 1 floor here, then there was a small stairs to go down to a lower level and a higher level. So triple level.
Yeah.
And one Mexican climbed the stairs to go to this upper. I was going mad dogging. Right? You talked about tension, the tension before. Everybody knows what's about to happen. My friend remembers, like, they rushed him, and he heard me say, "Here we go," because he thought it was funny. Because I just said it cool, calm, like, "Here we go," and then, boom, boom. It was a single launcher, so I'm shooting. Boom.
What happened though? Tell us what the inmates did to the guys coming in from PC.
There was one Mexican sitting on his lower bunk. They're looking. They fucking rushed. 3, 4, 5, rush. Boom, start fighting this dude. Other dudes, but this is me focused on my corner of the pie. They were kicking it off behind me too, over there. You had dudes running from the other end of the dorm, through the shower area, through coming to get theirs. So 7-on-1, 10-on-1, 12-on-1.
Just gang beating them, down.
Yeah, but when you get so many people beating up one dude, they're not.
Start hitting themselves.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's almost a good thing in a way.
Yeah.
So then here I come, blasting. Like,
yeah.
We're blasting, we're pepper spraying, we're shooting, boom, boom, boom. Sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's not. And yeah, I was hitting him in the leg and in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Kind of learn throughout your experience. I mean, those things will kill somebody if you hit them in the head.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we quell it.
Yeah.
We put them in restraints.
Yeah.
This is the crazy part. They get those individuals, they take them outside. The conversation that was had outside was, we are going to take off these restraints, we're going to walk you back in there, and we're going to keep doing this all night long until you guys get tired. So...
And what did they do with the guy that just got beat up?
He was part of the one sitting outside. So, hey, we're going to do exactly what I just said. So they start coming back in. Me and my other homie, because we were 2 lieutenants, we're like, what the fuck did they just say out there? Like, hey, that they're going to cut off the restraints and bring them back in here and do it all over. We're like, both at the same time, because he was a Marine, I was in the Army. We're like, dude, that's fucking stupid. Like, I mean, she's like, dude, that's fucking stupid. And I'm like, yeah, that's fucking stupid. Because, hey, man, now what are we doing? What are we doing initially, and now what are we doing? This is not fucking cool. Everybody is now in a bad spot. So I didn't feel, you asked me if I was looking forward to the action. Yeah, because I was a lieutenant and I thought my days of shooting were over. But the way, I'm not down with shooting fish in a barrel. I'm not down for unethical bullshit. So they bring them back in and everybody is like this, like dreading it. Everybody, the cops, the COs, like, and I want to make that clear. Ain't nobody was cool with this shit. Like, dude sits back down, you know, bloodied or little. He didn't get rocked the first time, right? And he's like looking. That's what I give the dude. That dude had heart. That dude had fucking heart, because all these dudes did that fucking went back in there. And then sure as shit, it kicked off again. Fucking dude, this is where I'm letting this dude up. Shooting the dude in the ass, shooting the dude in the thigh, boom, boom, boom. I hit him like 5 times, all the way up the leg.
And Sereno's just, and it's just people running at him, beating him up again. Everybody's trying to get in work, right?
Correct.
Everybody needs to show that they're at least putting in an
Correct.
effort to try to beat this guy to death.
100%.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. How many times does this happen? And they bring him out?
Twice. Twice. So they take him out again. Then now we're upset. First we were confused, and now it's like, hey, this is fucking stupid.
Were you trying to intervene? Were you trying to say, get me a higher up to stop this?
So you have the crisis response team commander. I wasn't the commander then. Nobody really knew who was running the show. Was he running the show because he's the crisis response? Was the captain of that facility running the show? Was the administrator of the day, the AOD running the show? Mm-hmm. Did the warden have overall authority? So you had all these chiefs.
Right. But you didn't know where it was. Nobody knew where it was actually coming from. Where these orders.
We knew where it came from. It originally came from the memorandum from Sacramento.
Let me cut you off. What if you took that memorandum and went to the press? Like, did anybody think about like exposing this kind of corruption or this kind of mismanagement? Or was everybody tight-lipped? Was it a known thing that like we don't talk about what goes on inside these walls?
No, I kind of look back and look at Nazi Germany. I'm sure Nazi Germany didn't happen overnight. I'm sure there was a lot of speculation. I'm sure there was a lot of confusion, a lot of shock, a lot of like what is going on here, right? So you're doing something up until a point like, what the fuck, right? I messed up and I gave the higher ups too much credit. I gave them too much credit. Coming from the military, I thought, hey, they're my superiors. I respect their rank. I respect what they say. They had to have earned their position for being where they're at. No, fuck no. They were all quite opposite. The opposite.
Don't you think that it maybe that they want chaos? Don't you think because when there's chaos, then they can order more equipment for a facility? I know that happens in the feds. You know, a warden will intentionally put people from different sets together because then he can justify ordering equipment for the riot squad. He can get more funding. Do you think it's a funding thing? The way that cops want the war on drugs, drug cops want there to be more drug busts because then they get more budget. Do you think that had something to do with the gladiator fights and the mixing, the seemingly like intentional mixing of problematic inmates when they know violence is going to happen?
So I could look at that as a boots on the ground perspective. Like if I was a grunt in Iraq thinking, hey, we're really here to liberate the people of Iraq and capture Saddam and weapons of mass destruction, right? And be fooled like I was. When in reality, hey, everybody got paid
right
up at the top.
Right.
I can give you that same answer working in the prison. I was fucking fooled. I'm not proud of it. It's pretty shameful.
Yeah.
I don't like to be a pawn in anybody's chessboard, right? It's not cool. So yeah, that's way above me. And for sure, look at, I mean, why else would they do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Now tell us about, this is a level 1 minimum yard. So what happened at Centinela, a level 3 and 4 yard when they started? What was that like when you got the order to start mixing the inmates?
I wasn't there for that.
Oh, you weren't there for that? Well, tell me about.
They didn't mix level 4s. They didn't even mix level 3s. They made it up to level 2 when they realized, oh, this isn't going to work.
Mixing the PC inmates with the GPs.
But the blood was already shed by them.
Did you hear about any inmates getting killed? I mean, obviously you heard about that one guy getting stabbed as soon as he was let out of handcuffs. Did you hear about any of that?
I'm sure it happened up north. I don't want to give misinformation, but I know a lot of dudes got stabbed the fuck up. Bad.
Now, what happened when you guys converted level 3 to level 4 at Centinela? This is what's fascinating. You were mentioning that off pod. What happened there?
That was the year 2007. I was brand spanking new, level 3. I was working with that one partner that, we got called pigs together, and he quelled that with his words. Verbal judo. We again, if you're boots on the ground, you're just going to get word. Hey, we're converting this to a level 4. Okay, cool. What does this mean? Oh, well, and this is what he told me. He's like, they don't fight with their hands. They use weapons. They use steel every time. I'm like, well, what does that mean? They don't fist fight. They stab each other. I'm like, God damn, like, okay. He was right. So that was a level 3 Charlie yard. They put up the fence because it's now a more secured perimeter. Concertina, they split the yard. So it's not one big yard. It's a yard split down the middle. So now you have 2. They don't have, at the time, they didn't have night yard. They didn't have night program. They sure did not have day room, meaning that they could not come out to the day room tables inside of their building and play cards and stuff like that at that time, right? And so, because they were violent or known to be violent, very staff assaultive. And yeah, as soon as they came, what's kind of funny real quick about that is those level 3s were still in the gym. They were having the beef between the blacks and the Mexicans. Remember, they kicked the blacks out of the gym. It was all Mexicans in the gym. When those level 4s showed up, there was a black OG level 4 walking to the clinic. Well, these dumb level 3s, Mexicans, went off on the black dude, thinking still like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do. This is prison. Those level 3s got checked by everybody. By the Mexican level 4s, by the blacks. Hey, you dumb motherfuckers. This is our yard now. You're going to fucking follow suit. That shit's over.
So no more fist fighting.
Which kind of makes sense.
So no more, that means no more fist fighting.
That means whatever beef they had with the blacks then and there was immediately squashed.
Right.
Because now level 4s, they don't want to fuck around. They want to live there.
Right. So level 4s, what was then the biggest difference was in the way that violence was carried out. It wasn't random anymore. If somebody went at somebody, it was with a knife.
Knife, man. 2-on-1 stabbings.
Wow. And did somebody usually die if it was a 2-on-1?
No. they not usually die. They would die from time to time, but stabbed up, dude, hospitalized, life flighted.
And was that normally within their own race, or was it?
Yeah.
That was more often than not. It was a Mexican on a Mexican, a white on a white.
2 Mexicans on 1 Mexican, 2 whites on 1 white. Yeah, for sure. Clean up. There was a time called like spring cleaning, or I remember because I was new. So you have all these stabbings. I'm like, what are they fighting about? Oh, they're just cleaning up.
What does that mean? Explain that.
Like if you had a guy that had a drug debt, drugs are big in prison. Drug debt and couldn't pay it. Now you're gonna get stabbed. You're gonna get removed for not being able to pay your debt. If you somehow made it through the cracks and had bad paperwork, like maybe you had one of those, you were 18 years old and the girl you were banging was 17 years old.
Yeah.
It's statutory rape.
Yeah.
You have an R on your jacket. You're going to get stabbed the fuck up.
Doesn't
that would
matter.
happen too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely happen.
Like somebody would actually make it through. There'd be somebody would forget to check paperwork.
Either that or dude's fault. Like they can be making so much money in drugs, right? That they might be given a pass.
Right.
And they can say, look, this is what it says, man. I was 18. I had just turned 18. The dad got mad. She was 17. And it can fly for so long. Okay, cool. Give the homie a pass. Hey, politics are politics. When the shit goes south, now they can use that against them. Be like, hey, you're fucked. We're going to kill you.
Right. Now, tell me about the drug debts and the drug traffic. What kind of corruption did you know about or happened at Centinela in terms of guards bringing in tobacco, bringing in meth, bringing in heroin, and their collusions with what, the different races?
At first, I was shocked. At first, young and new. And then it became very frequent. You had one scenario with this older black lady. She was a CO in the building. She had been there for like 10 years. You had an inmate, big giant black dude, like probably 6'4", 6'5", like 300. He had been in that building for like 5 years. My buddy was in the restroom, the staff bathroom, messing with a lock on a locker. He pulled it. Boom. Because he called me. He was scared. Like, you're not going to believe what I found. Like, well, what'd you find? I was fucking around with a lock. I pulled it open. I found Subway sandwiches. I found tobacco. I found lighters. I found a jar of jalapenos and some cell phones. I'm like, oh, bro, call squad, right? Our investigative unit, right? Call our ISU. Like, I already did. I'm like, well, what'd they tell you? Said, hey, put the lock back on there. Don't say anything to her. We're on to her already. That's the thing, is that they do these investigations. They do these prolonged investigations to catch them in the act or to gather all the evidence, right? So
they don't want you screwing up the case.
Correct, right? Like if it was a Fed case or something with the DEA and he's like, oh shit. This is why it's dangerous and not cool. Because on a couple days later, a couple weeks later, I have a really good friend, a white dude, who's a CO, straight yard dog, meaning like solid cop, you know what I mean, fair, firm, consistent, respected. The sergeant tells him, hey man, go put that inmate in handcuffs and bring him to me. That was that one inmate.
Right.
So the two officers go over there, my friend and then the other partner. Hey man, come here. Goes over there, let me pat you down. Goes like this, he elbows him, turns around. I don't know if he elbowed him or he punched him, lays him out. Boom! Knocks my friend out cold. Reaches into his waistband. The cell door had already popped open, so he gets the cell phone, tries to flush it down the toilet. So he had the contraband cell phone on him.
Yeah.
Tries to flush it. Now everybody's fighting. Pepper spray, punches, throwing him down. They recover the cell phone. It had pictures of her topless, the CO.
Wow.
In there.
Wow. What kind of cell phone was it? I guess.
No. They actually have like iPhones. I've seen them, bro. Like they have the little ones and then they have the top, brand new ones.
So they got the newest iPhones
ones
in prison.
Yeah.
And how much is that going to cost to pay a guard to bring that in? What's like the going rate?
Cell phones at that time were going for $3,500.
Just to get us, like in 2007, like a flip phone.
2010.
Wow.
2010.
$3,500.
$3,500. I've seen them go as low as $800. But that's not necessarily a good thing. To see a cell phone go down to the price of $800.
That means the guards are even more corruptible. They'll work for even cheaper.
Correct.
And when you find cell phones, I mean, I assume every car, every prison car, every gang, they have at least a handful of different phones, right?
Can you elaborate on that?
Meaning like there's not just a gang of Serenos don't just have one phone. They've got multiple different kinds of phones. There's no way you're keystering that in. That's got to come in. There's no way that's coming in through the visiting. Those are all being brought in by the guards. How many people were like on the take, in your opinion?
So guards, free staff, whether they were your free staff plumbers, your maintenance workers, nursing staff, your RNs,
right?
RNs getting pregnant by these
Wow.
dudes.
So you saw nurses in the medical unit getting knocked up by the inmates. They were
knocked up.
And what would happen?
You get fired. You get walked off.
Right. But do you actually get arrested?
It varies. If you're bringing in dope, you're going to the feds.
Of course.
I've seen it. Like, but they hit like 3 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
Still, I don't give a fuck. That just sounds like a horrible time.
Right.
They get caught. Old timer once told me they all get caught, Hector. They all get caught.
Were you ever buddies with somebody that you thought was a good cop that ended up getting popped, bringing in dope or contraband?
So none of those cops that were dirty, none of those cops were my homies or friends. They were acquaintances.
Sure.
They were co-workers, but and that's pretty good to say. Like maybe I know how to pick my circumference, my circle. I don't know. Man, shit. One guy, this youngster too. Army Ranger of all things.
Wow.
Dude, they said that dude ended up being dirty. And I worked with him. We had many conversations about the Army. We had conversations about, the dude had a Purple Heart, I believe. So it was like, and I don't want to give out too much.
Did he end up getting arrested?
No, because if you're bringing in cell phones, I think, or tobacco, you're not going to get like jail time.
You're just going to get fired.
Yeah.
And did he end up getting fired?
Well, for sure.
Okay, so what did they catch him with?
I think it had to have been cell phones. Cell phones.
So you think that's like, and that's, I guess if you're an officer.
So I don't know. I told you I was living in San Diego and driving to Centinela. 2 hours there, 2 hours back. Well, there was a carpool, a van. You know those ride and share vans?
Yeah.
We would all ride in there. I rode with a dude for 15 years that ended up getting finally caught. Finally. We all knew this dude was dirty. He was bringing in grills to the inmates. Grills, like the rap music grills.
The gold and silver grills.
The way we caught that was a little youngster put himself on Instagram in the cell. Hey, what up? Didn't take long before they ran up in there and grabbed him.
Now, do you have people now that like TikToks, inmates have huge TikTok accounts.
They get caught.
But do you have people actually in the state monitoring, like going through these inmate TikTok accounts, trying to find out, okay, this is at this prison, this is here. Like, do you actually have like active law enforcement, or do they even have that kind of capacity?
They can and they do. The investigative services unit, right? But the way it usually goes is like if we're humans too, so we consume social media.
Yeah.
So you look like, oh man, look at this dude, right? Because we know the guy.
Have you ever seen a TikTok on your own TikTok and you're like, oh, I know that motherfucker.
Yes.
And what do you do? Do you then go like
me personally?
Or what would one do? Would you let it go? Would you let it go, or would you actually tell somebody?
I would. But that's towards the end. I didn't care about anything.
Right.
I didn't want to see anything. I didn't want to know nothing.
Right.
But yeah, you can be like, hey, look at this guy, and then oh man, go hit the pad.
Yeah, that's Smiley, dude.
Yeah, go and then go get it, and then he's like right there looking up.
Would you ever find somebody with contraband and just take it and tell them to go back to their cell? So just keep it pushing?
You know what sucks now is that we have body-worn cameras, man. But they were alleged that we were beating the dog shit out of disabled inmates at the prison that I was at, which court-ordered brought on body-worn cameras.
Wow.
First history. First ever. California, we were the ones.
Wow.
Nothing to brag about.
Now, do all COs have to wear body cams?
Yes,
and they're recording at all times?
At all times.
Wow. Do you think that's cut down on corruption?
What it does cut down is on allegations that we're beating up inmates when we are in fact not, right? In those cases.
Right.
Has it happened? Yeah. Has excessive use of force, have inmates gotten beat up when they shouldn't have? Yeah. Right? That's just like on the streets or whatever. But they get caught and they get fired.
Sure. But has that cut down on corruption though? On now that you're on camera all the time, has it cut down on people taking bribes to bring in contraband?
I don't know, because I was only working with them for a year and then I left. They came on late in the game.
Did inmates ever approach you to bring stuff in?
Twice.
What was that like?
Twice.
What happened?
One with Charlie Yard Centinela. He was a porter in the clinic. So I worked in the clinic, right? And this guy would come in. We had a rapport. But at the same time, I'm cautious, right? I'm not gonna let myself get manipulated. I understand my environment, but hey, I'm gonna keep it cool. Like let's talk. And we had many conversations. And I had my cell phone, right? You're not supposed to have your cell phone, period. But I would take my shit in, right?
Yeah.
And just browse or whatever. And he tells me, hey man, says my last name. He's like, too bad you're not down with the business. There's a lot of money to be made. And I'm like, that pissed me off, dude. So I like opened the back. I had a weird style to myself. So I opened the back door. I said, come out here. I said, hey, what the fuck did you just tell me? Oh, nothing. Why? What's up? I said, nah, dude, I'm pretty sure you said, too bad I'm not down with the business because there's lots of money to be made. He's like, no. I said, hey, don't you ever fucking like disrespect me like that. Like, because I had to set that, to me, I felt like I had to set that thingy, and it kind of made shit awkward. He left, and then like after that, I think I just set the tone.
Yeah. And what was the other time?
The other time I had to do was just joking around. It was hilarious. So, because it was Bravo Yard, all these inmates, and he's like, hey, what's up with those cell phones?
Right.
I just reacted like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, it was worth a shot.
Right.
I'm like,
you never know. It's like trying to get some pussy. You never know until you ask. You can't really blame them. Like, shit's got to get brought in. But I guess it's probably, a lot of those guys are geniuses in human behavior. So they can tell, it's pretty easy to tell whether somebody is a good cop or somebody can be manipulated. You know what I mean? Like, because it's in how you carry yourself and in the way that, the way that you interact with people. Like the guys that get super buddy, that's probably when, especially with white guys. I noticed that there was a lot of solidarity when I was at Two Rivers Correctional Facility between, the white shot callers and the white COs, right? Real uneducated, podunk, racist, or, racial.
Okay, yeah.
And so, everybody that the COs know on the outside is on meth, right?
Oh, really?
And everybody, it's they're bombed out,
right,
drug addicted places. And so there's just that kind of understanding where, it's nothing to be like, hey, is there any way I could toss you $1,000? You just get me in a pack of tobacco, right? Like that's it starts with friendship, and that's kind of how it, plays out. But
so,
somebody like you, it's you carry yourself a little more strict because you've been in the Army. I imagine it's somebody would think twice about throwing that offer out there.
So at the academy, they drove it into you. Hey, beware, these guys are all manipulators. They're all master manipulators. They're trying to get one up on you. They're trying to see what they can get.
Yeah.
Right? So I just paid attention to that.
Yeah.
And then what the inmates will do is they will piggyback on what's happening. So let's say two partners are arguing, and it's clear as day that they're arguing or they're not getting along.
Right.
They'll use that. Let's say there's a female officer that's going through it because she's heartbroken because another CO broke her heart.
Right.
They'll use that angle.
Right.
Hey, what's up? Like, I noticed you're lonely. I noticed that you're a little off today. And then boom, throw it chipping away.
Right. And did you think it happened more with female COs because women are more emotional? You think I've
seen it with male and female.
Right. What happened with the COs that they got caught fucking the inmates? That always happens.
Yes.
You saw that happening?
Yeah. Went to an academy. I went to the academy with one female who I actually grew up with since 3rd grade and on up. She ended up getting caught, fired, and then running off and living happily ever after.
With the inmate?
Yeah, but 95% of the times, the inmate will break it off because he doesn't need her no more.
Right. So when you saw that, do you think these female COs, this romance with inmates, it's because the inmates are trying to get her to bring stuff in?
That, and like you said earlier, they're trying to smash, they're trying to get laid.
Right. So when did that happen? When did you see that happening? You saw that at Centinela?
There was I'm gonna share this story. I'm gonna share this story. Fuck it. I was on the carpool, and there was a pretty attractive female officer, right? And I kind of like friendly with her, I'm familiar with her. And she's like, hey, I just came back from vacation. You want to see my pictures? Went to the beach or whatever. Like, yeah, shoot it. Let me see what's up. She took like 5 pictures of her in her bikini. I mean, she brought like the whole fake package, tits, ass, whatever. Ah, cool, nice pictures. I noticed though in the camera, she was looking away from the camera, her face. So she was standing in a doorway, but facing this way, laying on the beach, but facing this way. Just different stuff like that. She puts it in her lunch bag. She was also smashing the sergeant and the lieutenant.
Oh,
so I'm like,
and everybody knows this. It's
well,
like workplace gossip.
It's normal program.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, okay, I worked in the building with her on one day. That was that day. We all knew she was smashing the sergeant and the lieutenant. Like it wasn't, I mean, kind of everybody was getting it if they wanted it, right? So she puts in her lunch bag. I'm like, oh, she's going to give it to the sergeant, or at least show the sergeant like she showed me.
Yeah.
We go in the building. Man, there was a Southsider, level 4. Dude thought he was Rico Suave. Clearly he was Rico Suave, apparently. She's in the office. There's a little office. There's a podium in the middle where I was sitting in the podium. She's in there. The homie, the inmate, has his arm posted on the door frame, leaning up like, you know, like he's GQ, and you can see her through the window eating it up. Like, you know, when a girl is eating up a guy's like charm.
Yeah.
And I look, I'm like, what the, like, instantly got a feeling of like nauseous, like kind of like what the fuck? Like it just, because these are level 4 killers, so to say, and they are.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I told you what happened when my friend got punched and knocked out by another. That was a level 3.
Yeah.
So I get upset. The dude's spitting game. She's eating it up, right? So I get up. I'm like, you know what? There's a water bottle in my bag in that office. I'm going to get up and go get it. So I get up. I stand between the both of them. They're both looking at me like I'm an asshole and like I'm a cock blocker. So I'm like, oh, hell no. So I was like, I got upset, bro. I'm like, fucking go. Sit back at the podium. I'm like, what the hell do I do? Like, this is borderline sketchy, like unfamiliar, over familiarity. Like, this is weird. Like, I don't feel safe right now. If it kicks off, she's probably going to assist the inmates in beating my ass, you know?
Yeah.
She asked me, hey, do we have those envelopes? And I'm like, yeah, look in the drawer over there. I'm doing something. I look, she hands this dude the envelope. They both look at me. The eyes went like, phew. He takes off, walking at a fast pace, slides the envelope underneath cell 101. She gets up, she goes to the restroom. So I'm like, oh, fuck.
So what was she passing him?
The pictures.
Wow.
The pictures.
Wow. Of course, because why would somebody have photographs in this day and age?
The pictures, man.
Why everybody is, yeah.
So I was like, oh, fuck no. So I got on the phone and I was also talking to some other girl, or I knew this other girl that was in that investigative unit. And I said, hey, this is what I just saw. What the fuck do I do? She's like, hey, don't trip. We're on to her. Right? They're on to these people.
Yeah.
Where did those pictures go? I said, cell 101. Like, all right, we're going to hit the pads. We're going to hit. Like, this was second watch, so we're going to hit the house third watch.
Yeah.
They hit them, but they were already gone.
Wow.
She ended up leaving before she got fired.
Right.
Oh, dude, all fucking bad. Then you hear the stories of when she left. Yeah, she was getting fucking dicked down in the bathroom. So, dinner time, right? There's the housing unit. There's a rotunda. There's a staff bathroom in the middle. It's like a hallway, like there's a bathroom. She would leave the door unlocked, right? Because all doors are supposed to be locked in prison. She would leave it unlocked. When all the inmates file out to chow, the inmate would let himself into the restroom. The guy in the control booth didn't know that there was an inmate in the restroom.
Yeah.
She would say, hey, partner, I'm going to go in the restroom. She'll go smash this motherfucker, do whatever. She'd come out. When the inmates returned from chow, he would just blend in with the crowd and go back in.
Yeah.
Rest is history.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's dirty.
It is.
And it happens all the time.
Hey, dude, like this girl was like a 9 on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, imagine like what kind of twisted person is working as a CO. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
I mean, good for him, right? I guess. But he fucking got his.
Now, what about when you would report these things? Did you get any kind of pushback from trying to report corruption?
That's not ratting.
Right.
That's not ratting.
But did you get any kind of pushback from trying to like expose these things? Or is this kind of the first time that you're kind of coming out about like the corruption, especially when it comes to like, you know, the gladiator fighting and the mixing of yards?
So this is what it would look like before I left. Like, let's say you were a captain, right? And you were not up to. I could run circles around you, right? Because I know policy and I know my job better than you do. I would back them into corners. I said, you know what? So this is what you want me to do? You want me to mix this inmate right here that has a rape on his jacket? Stuff like this.
Yeah.
You have a rape with this guy that just got out of Pelican Bay?
Yeah.
Do me a favor, send me that in the email. They hated that because that just goes to show you how unethical they are.
Right.
Why wouldn't you send it in the email?
Of course.
But they don't.
They don't want the paper trail.
Correct. So like I would do all kinds of little chess moves, right? And in return, they would write me up. They would write me up for some frivolous bullshit, man. They would make stuff. It was just frivolous. Just, oh, hey, on this report over here, you didn't put a period, you put a comma. Stupid shit like that, right? Like,
did you feel like as time went on, you were backed more and more into a corner? Like, when did you really feel like disillusioned with the system? The way you were disillusioned with the army?
This is how. I promoted to lieutenant in the year 2017. We got a warden in the year 2020. He was equivalent to Hitler. That's all I'm going to say. He looked like Suge Knight, right? He asked me to be his right-hand man, which is a public information officer, which goes in front of the camera and says, hey, this is so-and-so at this prison. These people just attacked each other. The spokesperson for the prison. So I felt like I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. If I say no, I'm going to get fucked. I'm going to get retaliated against. It's just common practice. If I say yes, fuck. Well, at least now I'll have Saturday, Sundays off. For 15 years, I never had Saturday, Sundays off or the banker's hours. So I'm like, fuck it. Yeah, I'll do it, sir. He's like, you will? Because he knew what time it was. I was like, yeah, sir, I'll do it. Because in the military, you don't say no to your superiors like that. So fucking 2 days later, he asked me to be the commander of his SWAT team, the CERT team. And I'm like, hell no, sir. That's going to make it look like I came in here ratting on everybody. Like, yeah, I wouldn't do that to you. So he simultaneously, after 3 times of asking me, I became the commander and the PIO. You could just imagine the perception like, hey, who is this guy? And how did he shine so bright all of a sudden with this guy? We had a captain on Bravo Yard. There was a Mexican mafia member. They were over familiar. They were real buddy-buddy. They were doing weird shit together, having behind the doors, closed door conversations. The captain telling the officers, hey, don't pat this dude down. Don't do this, don't do that. All of us was experiencing like, hey, what the fuck? No, like that's dangerous. Like, what the fuck? But since he had the backing of the warden, that was his boy. There was nothing that we could do to stop what was transpiring. It was a train wreck that was about to happen.
Yeah.
So the train wreck happened. There was this attempted murder on 2 officers. Bad, bro. This one was fucking bad. I mean, I've seen some bad ones. This one was up there. The officer got stabbed the fuck up. And I've never said this on a podcast. I've never even said this shit. The details. He got stabbed in the upper lip, broke all his teeth in, caved in his gums. They took the baton, they smashed this dude's face in, broken face, It was that Mexican mafia member kicked it off with his cronies, his bodyguards, because they have bodyguards. And that cop is lucky he survived. I went out to the hospital and seen him like 6 different times.
Why did they try to hit him like that?
So there was talk that it stemmed over disrespect, that the officers disrespected the inmate and it kicked it off. But you got to look at the environment that was fostered. That captain gave all the power to all the inmates, so they felt entitled. Those inmates were drunk at the time on the yard. It was time for them to go back in. Some words were exchanged, and then it just fucking kicked off.
What did the warden do about that?
Swept it under the rug. I was a PIO, the public information officer. I get a call on my state cell phone from Sacramento headquarters. Hey, don't make a statement. And I didn't think anything of it because I was filling 2 roles. Now I'm the commander. Now I have to get this suspect, this dirtbag, from this prison transferred to this prison because he's a threat, right? And I had to make sure that the officers didn't beat him up in the process. Like you guys talk about or they said retaliation or torture. I'm not dumb, man. And it's nothing to me. Like, I'm not going to lose my job to beat the fuck out of some scumbag. What is he? What am I gaining? Right? Like, the damage is already done. Anyways, it didn't take long. That dude got put in the hat. Like, his own people didn't approve of
Put
that.
in the what?
Put in the hat.
What's the hat?
Marked for murder.
Because he beat up that officer?
Because of everything that went down.
Yeah.
The way it went down. It brought a lot of heat. It brought the heat on that organization.
What happened to the captain that was involved with the Mexican mafia shot caller.
So we had a conversation. Me and the warden drove to the hospital to see the inmate. Me and the warden drove to the hospital to see the officer that got stabbed up. On the way back, the warden tells me, man, I thought that guy would come around. Talking about the captain. The captain was a straight idiot. I said, no, he's not going to come around, sir. That's a wrap. That's a wrap with him. The best thing you can do is move his ass to Delta Yard, because even if he fucks that yard up, we can still bring it back. And he looked at me like I was crazy, but he did eventually move him to Delta Yard because it was a good yard. There was a lot of OG convict inmates. They loved the program. It was like good staff. It was a good yard. So even if his dumb ass went over there and fucked it up, we'd still be able to bring it back.
Yeah. So was the warden, was he corrupt though, or just inept in your opinion?
So corrupt, because we know, because of the results of this attempted murder on a peace officer, there was an associate warden who could no longer stomach what he was seeing. He retired. He wrote a long ass email exposing the truth. Everything I just told you. Sacramento calls me and says, hey, can you type up a memorandum? What did she say? Can you type up like pretty much not substantiating these claims? And I'm like, why the fuck would I write up a memorandum not substantiating these claims? 5 minutes later, she writes back, oh, don't worry. Chief Deputy Director Seibel already typed one up. Like 5 minutes, not even an investigation has gone through.
Yeah.
So I look at it. It says Sacramento has full support of Warden Pollard.
Wow.
We have full support of the leadership. We have full support.
Yeah. Wow. Why do you think that is? And what other corruption did you see with this warden?
Putting frivolous investigations on people. That dumb captain got caught in a lie. Big giant lie. And you get fired for lying. Anybody gets dishonesty, that's fired. That's a fireable offense, right? Because you can't be a peace officer if you're dishonest. That's like a peace officer thing in California. They covered it all up. They taking documentation from logbooks, getting rid of it, altering shit, backdating shit, like all that's immoral. Like, hey, you're a warden. You're supposed to be running a prison, not like conspiring and doing these retaliatory, criminal behavior.
Wow. So that was the last straw with you?
So it got to the point where I would always tell the staff, man, not even the inmates are acting like this. Not even the inmates are this unethical. The inmates are not unethical at all. It's the administration worried about. And they would just say, yeah, you're right. 100% you're right. They all knew it. Everybody felt it.
And you felt like this put the COs in danger?
It clearly did.
Yeah. Did you notice an increase in staff assaults with wardens that were inept and unethical like that warden? Did you notice an increase in violence?
It does. Because you're tying the officers' hands behind their backs. It was like a perfect storm of ineptitude and corruption. Just, it's bad. You're instilling the fear into the officers for defending themselves in a rightful staff assault and getting them fired and saying you can't, in essence, you can't defend yourself from getting attacked. In essence.
Wow.
So that if you're a brand new kid in the department, you're just getting, I was watching these officers get slapped around, slap the fuck around.
By inmates.
And like, hey, ow, stop. Like, right, if it was us back in the day, it would be on and cracking.
Of course.
They were like, no, what? And I would get upset. I was a lieutenant. I would have a meeting. I said, you are lucky. They are just slapping you guys around. They should be stabbing the fuck out of all you guys.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like, if I was like, damn.
So that's the environment that you see now with young guys coming up, is that they're basically, they're hampered and not allowed to defend themselves.
So it's only gotten worse. But the icing on the cake, man, here it goes, was COVID. COVID pandemic. You talk about the ineptitude of mixing general population and SNY. What about the COVID when they were moving inmates around, spreading it? When we told them, leave them in place.
Yeah.
Leave them in place.
Yeah.
Nope. We'll write you up for talking back to us, being insubordinate. Well, the whole bullshit, man.
Wow.
Inmates were dying. Inmates definitely fucking died then. Definitely died then.
Because people would move infected inmates to different facilities.
Whole gyms full of infected inmates.
Wow.
level 4s mixed with level 3s, just weird shit.
Wow. And did you see one inmate move and infect an entire gym?
Yes.
And did people die off? Did you see anybody actually die of COVID?
Google it.
But at the facility you were working at?
Absolutely 100%.
Give us an example. Just one quick example.
They would all get COVID positive, right?
Yeah.
They'd go out to the hospital and they'd die. And it'd be like, I don't know how much it was. 19 of them, 20 of them. The numbers were like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
And you know what the fucked up thing about that is like, I'm a fair guy, man. I never went in hating inmates or personal. The fucked up thing about it is these guys were dying so fast, we weren't even catching up with making the next of kin notifications, telling the family members, hey, your loved one has passed away.
Wow.
That's fucked up.
That's fucked up.
Or giving them the opportunity to visit their family member as they're dying in a bed, hospital bed.
Do you think the gangs use COVID and this policy of like hands off, like, you know, not allowing COs to defend themselves? Do you think that inmates and shot callers have taken advantage of that to gain more power?
It varies. Because what I'm talking about was a sensitive needs yard level 4 EOP, which is the worst of the worst as far as knuckleheads, knucklehead types. Thankfully, on regular yards with regular gang members and crime organizations, they still have level heads. Level heads prevail, right? So, yeah, they're still getting their business done. They don't want no heat.
Right.
Nobody does.
Right. But on the
other side, it's the wild, wild west, free for all from hell, man. Wild, dangerous.
You talking about like stabbings,
mentally ill, stabbings, gassings.
Do people still get the cocktails? Do people still get piss and shit cocktails?
Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah,
did that happen to COs when you were working?
It did. It never happened to me, thank God. Because I think I would have lost my mind.
Did you see that happening?
I never saw it.
Did you hear about COs going crazy after getting those cocktails thrown on them?
Yeah, but there's not that much you can do because if they're going to be behind a closed door when they do that.
Right.
Like I said, you can't open that door. So even if this guy's getting crazy, losing his mind, the control booth officer is not going to open the door. Not going to put the dude in a bad spot. Plus, when they get gassed, I think they're like in shock. Like
does getting gassed? What does that mean? Getting gassed?
Getting gassed, getting that
means getting the shit cocktail thrown in your face.
Piss, semen, shit, blood, urine, everything, man.
And when that happens, and that's how does that occur? When a CO's opening a door?
Oh, yeah. Opening the food port for feeding the tray.
Yeah.
Opening the food port for giving the medication. Talking to the side of the door.
Right.
I learned this in the academy. They threw water on me in the academy. I learned never to put my face on the side of the door.
Right.
They do these weird shit where they can get like a bag. They'll be inside the cell and they'll stomp on the bag and somehow that shit shoots out when you're walking the tier. So like they know how to do all kinds of.
So like a misty. So like the mist will hit you.
Shit wave.
And when that happens to an officer, I mean, that's just got to change your life. Like, what's the protocol? Do you go get a test, like an STD test? You get tested for Hep C? Do you get tested for HIV? You must have to go to the hospital immediately.
One of my friends got exposed to syphilis.
Oh my God.
And I never said this, and that's as much as I'm going to say on that.
But getting gas though,
it was along the lines. Right? So they all have HIV, man. And for me to say where I was at, is that
because they're homosexual? Are they dope shooters? Or
all of the above? Homosexuals, transgenders, dope shooters, tattoos. It's the hepatitis C, the cirrhosis of the liver. Thousands, man. I've seen yellow people with jaundice. I've seen people die because I used to work at the hospital.
Yeah,
these dudes die. Like it looks like a shitty death, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So imagine being exposed
right.
in your mouth and your eyes.
Right. And so were you worried about that when you were in the high security? You were never around those kind of inmates? Or you just weren't worried?
Well, I was cautious.
Yeah.
I was cautious.
Yeah.
So before I approached the set, I was taught well by good veteran cops at Centinela.
Yeah.
So, hey, before you go in, turn on your lights in the cell. I got to be able to see you.
Yeah.
Let me see your hands.
Yeah.
Right. Turn around.
Yeah.
Now these young kids are, it's a recipe for disaster, man.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's chaos in that unit. So what ultimately was how do you feel in conclusion? Like why did you decide to retire? You're making a good salary. Why did you decide to leave? And what are your feelings? You know, you're disillusioned after going into the military and being shipped to Iraq. What is your takeaway from all this and your feelings about your years in the prison system and why you chose to ultimately leave?
So everything was cool until it wasn't cool, right? Like with that warden and during the COVID, my wife's sister contracted COVID. Within a 1 week of testing positive, she passed away. She was 41 years old, and that was like my wife's like favorite sister and like mother figure. You know, we received a call at midnight. She lost her mind. Like, I get my state cell phone and I text the warden, "Hey sir, my wife just received news of her sister passing. I won't be in to work tomorrow, and I may return on Monday if everything's situated at home." You know what he responded with? "Bring me verification."
Wow.
So I like got the cell phone and I threw it, and the math wasn't adding up. Like my 4-year-old daughter, that was I don't want to use the word torpedo, but if you're a young man and you feel like you got nothing to lose, then technically I had nothing to lose, right? But my daughter put things in perspective to me. I started slowing down. I stopped getting involved in things. Well, I would still get involved, but I wasn't putting myself out there. I was like very miserable, very unhappy, very quiet, I couldn't even function. I couldn't even function at home. Like,
and is that because of what you saw at work every day?
The corruption. Yeah. Not even the inmates, man. Not even the inmates. Wow. And you ask any officer right now at any prison in California, who's the problem? The administrators or the inmate? Hands down, they're going to say the administrators.
But you wouldn't, the images of guys in the yard bleeding out, that didn't do it for you? That didn't cause you the tension?
Yeah. Blood tension, hypertension, and like anxiety.
No, but just witnessing murders. The corruption was worse than witnessing men getting stabbed to death?
Yeah.
I just don't...
I did witness a murder before I left. Yeah, and I was standing there drinking my coffee, just like that. And my friend's like, "Hey, bro, you can't be in my camera like drinking coffee when this dude's dying out. It doesn't look good." I'm like, "Bro, I'm the commander of the SWAT team. Don't you want a guy like this here?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah. Like, you know what I mean? You have to be built like... You don't want a dude that's gonna panic.
Yeah.
But that takes its toll on an individual.
Of course.
Right? I'm human.
Yeah.
And I would like to get my emotions back, bro.
Right. So do you feel like that you lose a piece of yourself? You do the job long enough?
I became a very callous individual.
Wow.
And I got a daughter, a baby girl, man. I ain't trying to be no monster or like rock in front of her. Like, I'm gonna raise you, right? Like, we're gonna do this right. I only got one chance at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Money, I can get money anywhere.
Yeah.
To me, I didn't see the difference between mixing GP and SNY as being dirty money than selling dope and being dirty money. Dirty money's dirty money.
Yeah.
I'm cool on all that. Like,
yeah.
The juice wasn't worth the squeeze anymore.
Yeah.
So I left, man.
Well, tell us about what you're doing. Plug the channel and tell us about what you going on now.
So I got out. I started a YouTube channel called That Prison Guard. And then mainly I get on there and I tell these types of stories, right? But I always end the story with a positive message. I got 12 years of sobriety. Haven't done drugs or drank alcohol in 12 years and going, right, one day at a time. But I was not always this type of dude. I did a lot of harm in my past. I broke a lot of hearts. I messed a lot of things up. And I've learned from that, and I want to give back. I want to be the voice for the inmates and the staff and the family members of what's really happening. Mm-hmm. I couldn't stomach that shit no more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I keep it fair, like straight up.
Yeah. Well, that was riveting. That was like, man, it's a bad place to be in prison. California. Bad place.
Hopefully it gets better.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Do you see them you mentioned letting people out, they're giving lifers. Mm-hmm. They're now paroling people doing life. They weren't doing that before.
Correct.
Tell us about that really quick. Why do you think that is? Is it because the population swelled so much that they now have to start, they just can't house everybody?
I think lawsuits influence the department.
Yeah.
Right. So if you got a lot of family members saying, "Hey, you guys are overcrowded. We're filing a lawsuit. My son died because you put him in this position."
Yeah.
Now something has to give, right?
Right.
But as a result of seeing lifers go home, we have turned on the news and seen parolees shoot it out with the cops.
Right.
Those have increased.
Yeah.
LA.
Yeah.
Both of them get killed. You got a cop get killed. You got a parolee get killed. But on the same flip of the coin, you have many individuals who I have talked to and interviewed on my channel and known that come out and thrive.
Yeah.
That grew.
They never had to do all that time. They didn't have to do life to turn themselves around.
Well, they did 20 years, 25 years, 24, 26.
Yeah.
But even in there, I was watching. That's another thing that made me want to leave the prison. I'm like, I'm getting to a point where I'm seeing that these inmates are not the problem.
Right.
And I don't, this is not, I don't want this.
Yeah.
Right. And I was seeing legitimate changes in them.
Did you see more people go in and get worse, or more people go in and get rehabilitated?
Okay. Maybe 60% rehabilitated, 40% worse.
Wow.
Maybe.
That's
Maybe.
pretty good. You hear the opposite from
Maybe.
a lot of people.
Maybe.
You hear people just go in and get worse for the majority of
Right
inmates.
now, and I'll be honest, like Sacramento did do this good. By giving lifers a way out or letting them out, the violence stopped. The violence dropped as compared to how it was.
Right, because now you have something to live for.
Hope.
Yeah, hope.
It gave them hope.
Right.
Right. So maybe a dude that will normally blast you and take you out will think, I got a shot at going home.
Yeah.
Even if it's just that one instant, you just lucked out that one day.
It's amazing to me that it took them so long to figure that out. Like quit giving people centuries in prison, and maybe they'll quit acting like they have nothing to lose. Give somebody something to lose and they'll quit acting like they have nothing to lose.
I did see that. that.
Wow.
That's a true statement.
Well, thank you so much, Hector. Make sure to go check out his channel. We've really appreciated having you here, and best of luck
Awesome.
in the civilian life. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me
got
also,
it.
dude.
Okay, buddy.
Cool.